Hey guys, welcome back to Knowledge Portal. This is Saurabh Jain, and today I am back with a very interesting video on the US-China trade war. So without wasting any more time, let's get started. You might have been reading in newspapers, listening on news channels, or might have heard from your friends about a fight going on between US and China. So what's going on? There's a trade war on between them. Before getting into the details of that war, let's first understand what a trade war is. In trade war, countries fight among each other using trade as their weapon. They may stop trading or impose sanctions or charge tariffs, that is taxes. Now that you are aware of what a trade war is, let's get into the details. First of all, let me give you some facts about trade between US and China of last year. Goods and services worth more than $711 billion were traded. China was the third largest market for US exports. US exports to China were worth $130 billion, while US imports from China exceeded $500 billion. So the difference or trade deficit was at record high of $370 billion. Now let me tell you a story which started way back in 2016. Back in the year 2016, a Chinese company named ZTE, manufacturers of smartphones and the world's biggest makers of telecommunication equipment, was caught for illegally shipping US technology to Iran and North Korea behind US government's back, and was also guilty of lying to the Federal Bureau of Investigation about this case. As a punishment, they were banned buying equipments from American companies for 7 years. By the way, let me tell you that 30% of the components requirement is being supplied from American companies like Microsoft, Intel, Qualcomm, which is nearly $2.6 billion. So this was going to affect both China, as ZTE is a techno giant of China, and US, because this would hurt the US companies a lot. Thus, in the second round of high-level discussions among US and Chinese president in the morning of May 13, US agreed of lifting the ban as part of negotiations, but imposed a penalty of nearly $1.3 billion. After analyzing the facts about US-China trade and the story of ZTE, we conclude the reasons why Trump needs to go for a trade war with China. So it is clear that there are two rationales for Trump to ignite this trade war. First, it wanted a fairer trade between US and China, thereby reducing the trade deficit. It also wanted to punish China for the theft of intellectual property of USA. Now let's take a look at the moves played by both US and China. First, on April 3rd, Trump unveiled a list of more than 1,300 Chinese exports, which included flat screen TV, aircraft parts, etc., and said it would impose a 25% tariff, that is tax, on them. This would affect approximately $50 billion worth of Chinese exports. That's approximately $12.5 billion in tax. The very next day, China struck back, unveiling its own list of US exports of approximately $50 billion with a 25% tariff. This package could affect more than 100 American products, including cars, airplane, and soybean, which is the top US agricultural export to China. After this move of China, Trump again threatened to impose additional 10% duty on another $200 billion of Chinese exports if China refuses to give up. In response to this, China has promised of a retaliatory move for this decision. Nobody knows where this will end. But the most important part of the story is about knowing the fact who could win this US-China trade war. So now let's consider who could win this war based on some facts and logics. In a serious economic battle, US wins, and there is no question about it. This is because Chinese economy is dependent on exports, and nearly 20% of its exports go to US. But this isn't just an economic fight, it's also a political fight, and there's a strong case that President Trump would be less able to sustain a conflict with Chinese, especially with the 2018 midterm elections of US coming. China, while choosing its list of commodities, smartly chose commodities that hurt US the most. Let me give you an example about soybean. China buys 1/3 of US soybean produce, which makes it the biggest importer of soybean for US. These soybeans are produced in states like Ohio, Missouri, and Indiana, who had supported the Trump administration during the elections. And now, because of tariffs from China on these soybeans, demand for these soybeans will go down, which will drastically affect these producers. And Trump would not want instability or job losses before elections from such public who supported him. The fact is that US has more commodities to hit than China. But these tariffs won't only hurt China, but it would also hurt US producers and consumers. Experts also say that China can make survival of US companies like Nike, Reebok, iPhones, etc. difficult in China. So practically, you can't decide who's gonna win. So what's next? Nothing great. We wait and watch for their next moves. It's possible that they may continue with their war or come to the table and negotiate a deal. So friends, this brings us to the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed it. But don't forget to like it, subscribe it and share it with your friends. And please do comment your reviews and the topics you would like me to make videos on.